Scott Narver, can you believe it? It's been 10 years.
Jake Lloyd Bacon, I know 10 years ago, Blue Tista appeared for the first time ever.
No, Scott, that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, 10 years ago, Dan O'Brien fought Kane and defended his world title.
No, Scott, something specific to us happened 10 years ago.
10 years ago, we cried when Tamina Snuka lost the Divas title against Paige.
God damn it. 10 years of the podcast today on Pro Wrestling Palskis. Hey, Scott Narver.
Hey, Jake Lloyd Bacon.
Happy anniversary, buddy.
Happy anniversary to you, buddy.
It is, listen, this is just going to be a laid back, selfish program where we're just going to talk about ourselves. We're going to talk about our journey. Scott loves talking about journeys.
Oh.
As a reference.
It's our story.
It's our story. 3 years ago this week, Pro Wrestling Palskis started. But 10 years ago before that, you started a different program-ish. You started-ish. A different program that this show it's like the grandfather of. Like we're all in the same feed. Talking, of course, about Wrestling Buddies. I spent so much time making a theme song for a program called Wrestling Buddies. And bygone it, Wrestling Buddies is what premiered. What's that?
Did it?
What's that? I'm getting.
Did it?
I have another earpiece in this ear. This is why it seems like I'm not putting because I'm wearing headphones. But someone is telling me that didn't happen. But it's 10 years.
And
10
I think minutes before they went on air, the original host of the program, then just did a quick Google search and went like, "This doesn't exist." And Wrestling Compadres Slamcast was born.
10 years. 10 years ago, the Slamcast started. The Compadres. Wrestling Compadres, which is just a synonym for Wrestling Buddies.
Mm-hmm. And Slamcast is a word.
And Slamcast is podcast and body slam.
Yeah, why not bodycast?
Because that's a thing. That's like that's what happened to...
But everybody gets to sign it. Think of the merch. I got to go back and talk to those guys years ago from now. So yeah, it's we're celebrating. This all came about very last minute. Jake had realized, I don't know, how do you keep track of this stuff? Like, how do you end up knowing?
I knew that it was because I knew that it was our, like, the PWP branding's anniversary because we made such a big deal out of May 19th because it was the Kane, because it was the See No Evil, right?
Oh, see, this is the bad part too about the timing, because we're recording on a May 12th right now.
Sure,
so
of course.
Not even occurred to me. It's like, yeah, May 19th is not a big deal yet. I have 1 week to prepare and warn Rob Conway. Boy, that's not easy to warn Rob Conway.
Tamina. But so when I know that was coming, and I thought to myself, oh, wait a minute. I'm curious, like, when did the podcast start? And the earliest listed show was also in May. I want to say it was like May 11th or something like that.
This is on Wikipedia?
No, I literally just went back in the library of our program and like looked.
Do we not have a Wikipedia page?
I don't think we do.
What do you got to do to get a Wikipedia page?
We got to be more famous than us.
Well known?
More famous than us, I guess.
Ugh, who has the time?
Yeah, let's see. If I go to episodes, sort newest to oldest. Wait, no, that's not the right order. Other way around. Stupid idiot.
If you do that, you won't find it.
I'm so dumb. How did I survive anything? How do I run all this stuff? I'm really good at running. I have like a lot of talents, you guys. I really do. I promise.
Alexandra, the dogs, somebody's pulling the strings.
Yeah. Yeah. So listen, we're like a month off, but it was close. It was summer. It was summer of 2014 was the 10
What
years.
is?
The first couple.
So it's not the 10-year?
Well, it is, but it's, because we're celebrating our anniversary, and we're lumping in the 10-year with our 3-year.
Okay. I'm just wondering how many friendships I could have saved.
But there's also quite a few. It's also quite a few question marks about the beginning of the program. And I think it's because despite having an involvement in helping produce some music, I didn't really have anything to do with the production of the show. So obviously when the show that was Wrestling Compadres came to Dragon Wagon Radio and I became a producer of it, I was kind of just handed what I assumed was the best, archived, detailed, programs, as far as like the digital episodes themselves, the metadata so I also have some question marks. It's like when the show actually truly began, if the first episodes were the Booker T ones, because stuff also, when you go back in our feed, some stuff feels like there's episodes missing, so we have to the best of our ability, the entire archive of this program available on the feed that you're listening to it right now, listeners. But that's to the best of our availability. And there was so many question marks from the show being handed from one place to the
handed
other place.
Off many times.
Yeah, exactly. So
this show in its different iterations has had many homes.
Yeah.
So I recall that at times too being an issue of catalogs being transferred, feeds being transferred on iTunes and stuff like that. Like it would register as a spot that was 2 homes ago.
Right.
Like it still says AfterBuzz. Why does it say AfterBuzz?
Yep.
Like when we were at Fox Sports, that was a real big issue. Like it kept having other stuff
because people weren't updating the authors. And then when Apple integrated channels, that became a whole other thing where it was like, we have a Dragon Wagon channel, yet there was still an author called whatever it was. Wait, I remember what it was called. Radio TV or something. No, wait, what was the name? I can't remember what the name of the place that you were before DWR.
Oh, is that the stream.tv?
There it is. Couldn't even remember what it was called. Yeah, I couldn't get rid of that for ages. That took forever to get rid of.
I still can't get rid of it. That taste is in my mouth.
But yeah, tell me. It's always fun to hear stories of yesteryear. Tell me a little bit about the birth of the pod.
Well, I wasn't around. I wasn't with the pod in the beginning, like the pod, Wrestling Compadres Slamcast in the beginning days. Johnny LaQuasto, Del Rutledge, Chuck Rice, and I'd say for the majority of time, Nigel McGuinness,
right,
and Booker T were all regulars. Like sometimes people floated in and out. It was all at Nerdist. And I was doing curtain jerks at the time.
Right.
And I don't think AfterBuzz was on the radar for me yet. Like I just hadn't known everybody and met everybody yet.
Right.
So I heard about the show and was told about the show. I was checking it out and eventually was asked to be on the show. And the first time I went on, Johnny wasn't there. And I had never met Johnny. And I knew of him, but I never really saw him.
Right.
And
he was just a voice to you.
He was just a voice. And I knew he worked at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood at the time. And I knew he did stand-up comedy. And then maybe later on I knew about AfterBuzz. So I think I had gone on the show twice. And both times Johnny wasn't there. So then I had the idea, I'll go to a Championship Wrestling from Hollywood show. And I'll go see him there. And it'll be a chance to, because we chatted on the phone or on the show a little bit. But I hadn't seen him. So here's what I knew. I'm like, yeah, he's a white guy. He got spiky hair. It's kind of funny. And does like backstage interviews with the guys. I think does commentary as well. Go to the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood taping. It's a taping. It's indie wrestling. So it was like 5 hours. So,
Sure,
watch the whole thing. When I'm watching, I'm going like, there's Johnny. There he is right there. Okay. I'm gonna chat to him after the show. Go up and just start shooting the shit and just like, hey man, a really good show. He's like, oh, thanks. It was really good. Like, hey, Scott, by the way, like, nice to meet you. Oh, hey, cool to meet you too, man. We're just chatting. And I'd say about 3 minutes go by of chatting back and forth with this person. And I go, Johnny's just really nice to me. He goes, what? I go, aren't you Johnny LaQuasto? No. He says his name. They had a guy
and it's not Johnny.
who looked like Johnny.
This is great.
Who he worked there, and there I was chatting with him. I'm like, oh, is Johnny here? No, he's not here. And at that moment, I'm like, so is Johnny just never at any of his fucking gigs? Like he's not at the podcast. He's not at the wrestling show. Like he signed up for a thing. But he's like, I gotta go. I'm doing another thing somewhere else. So it was funny. And then Johnny, I think it was Johnny that said on the podcast when I got invited back to do it again that I had plans to go to WrestleMania 30 with AfterBuzz at that point with Tom Conley. And Johnny says, I'm going to have a I Meet You match and we'll meet each other.
Right. Yeah.
And we met each other outside of the Superdome, as Hulk Hogan would call it. And that was my first time meeting him. And I'd known Dale and I'd known Chuck. And then over time, it was a weird internal question for a while because it kept having me back on. And then it was like a weekly, keep showing up.
Right.
But I wasn't a part of the show.
Right.
And I just didn't know because I go up the stairs at Nerdist. I oftentimes wasn't around it was kind of implied like, don't ask questions for the guests. But then it's like, you can ask questions for the guests, but I go, I'm not a host. I'm not going to jump in.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
Like it's a weird, if I didn't get an intro to them, like I don't want to talk to someone over the phone. I missed out on all the, like they talked to Mick Foley once. And I was like, oh
yeah.
I wasn't around.
Right.
Like I wasn't a guy yet for that. And I'd meet Nigel in passing, and Nigel, I don't think Nigel much cared for me.
Oh no.
So Nigel he'd be polite, but he's a tough cookie to read.
Because everybody knows Cookie's infamously things that you read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get your fortune.
Right. That's fair.
Booker was fucking hysterical in the weirdness that he was.
Right.
So this is what would happen when it's time for Booker T's segment on the show. So they call him up every week. He knows he's part of the show every week. I think this is before he does his podcast. So this was an outlet for Booker to just talk about wrestling and stuff and do his Fave 5.
Right.
So every week he'd get a call and they'd be like, hey, Book, you ready to do the show? He's like, oh, man, I do not have time today, guys. I do not have time. Okay, well, this is one we talked about it, and this is one we could record, and so we could do like, God, okay, it's got to be fast. It's got to be fast.
Right.
We just got to go quick. 30 minutes later, as no one else talks and Booker T talks.
I mean,
he
come on now.
Talks and he says and he rambles and he goes, and then once he's done, he goes like, I gotta go. I don't have any more time. And I'm just sitting there confused, like, this was all on you. This is what you did.
That's a pro wrestler right there, baby. Too big for you, but also I'm gonna get my shit in.
I'm gonna get all my shit in. And
that's a 5-time champ.
Say fives. He could have just recorded those beforehand.
Hey, that's fair.
And just been done with that. So it was very odd. It was being at Nerdist. Nerdist was a big deal at the time.
Yeah, it was blowing up. I did a lot of work for Nerdist on the for their like web YouTube channel. I was doing a lot of like video work and shooting a lot of their like YouTube series that were kind of starting up, and like Nerdist was definitely like, everybody was so excited to like, oh my God, we're all gonna have work on the internet thanks to Nerdist, who's gonna come and save pop culture, pundits and commentary and all that stuff. And then, it did not last very long.
Chris Hardwick. Chris Hardwick is popular, and he's making all these things even cooler right now because nerddom was already at a peak.
Yeah.
Like it was accepted.
But I think The Walking Dead and then Talking Dead really like that, like changed like, oh, commentary about television shows that are nerdy and have IPs and that are adapted. And then that just sprawled out into like movies and TV, wrestling, like also tabletop gaming, like video games, everything.
Yeah, the nerd chat of we can have a nerd funny host talk about the subject matter with the people involved in it, and they can also have a good time.
Right.
That was becoming
The norm.
mainstream from Chris Hardwick, and then
Well, I don't know that I would
Nerdist.
call it as mainstream, but it was becoming such a large part of the subculture. Like it was like there was a huge
but
market.
The
for
Talking
it.
Dead was so featured that heavily after Walking Dead, you watched it and then you got that vibe.
Right. Totally.
And then that started to occur more with podcasts or like AfterBuzz or things cashing in on that trend.
That was literally the entire point of AfterBuzz. AfterBuzz. It was like, oh, let's watch the thing, and then right afterwards, we're going to talk about it. The whole premise of the network.
What I noticed from my point of view was Nerdist having all these shows and programs, but it was still like, ugh, and we have a wrestling one, is what it felt like.
Right. Yeah. You guys have mentioned that quite a bit, where it felt like they had you out of a feeling that they needed to versus that they wanted to. That's kind of what the vibe I got from you guys.
Yeah, from what I understood, the guys had pitched the show. They knew somebody and they were looking for content. And I think as they were gathering up a bunch of stuff initially, they were like, sure, yeah, that's a great fit. We'll do that too. And then as they had the space, all the shows, everything they're doing, cataloging, assigning a producer to the show, and juggling everything,
right?
Then it became, we're not terribly interested in having the show.
Right. Right.
So I don't know all the ins and outs of like how it all kind of wrapped up or came to be. I think Nerdist in and of itself just kind of fell apart, or they sold off to Lionsgate, or
it got sold,
something like that.
Sold, and they trimmed the fat. Nick Khan came in and just trimmed all the fat, just got rid of everything.
And then even Meltdown, the comic book store in Los Angeles that housed it, because it was upstairs in this horrible like
cabinet.
It was, there's no air conditioning. It's old. It stunk. And I remember hearing the story of that's where all the guests had to go too. They had to go up these stairs, and Mick Foley had to go up the stairs. To me, that felt so fucked up because of his knees. Right. And it sounded like it was
an ordeal,
a bit of an ordeal. He sounded like a team player, but
yeah, it was not.
Ultimately, it didn't make him happy.
And we're not saying that like, oh my God, you have to climb stairs. They were like a very specific, steep, small, narrow, like it was an odd staircase, because it was the sort of room that was built to be like an office in a what do you call it? Retail environment. So it was kind of like tucked, like a loft.
It's a lookout. A manager can see the customers,
exactly.
and can see everybody and still do their work.
It was like a little loft.
So it's a neat idea.
Sure. And I ended up being like, if it was maintained and dedicated, if it became a dedicated podcast space, it would have been nice. It would have been lovely. But yeah.
But they didn't update it. That place was always doing well. And then they had the performance space downstairs where they gutted something, and then made a performance space in the comic book.
And that was a great room.
Back area.
Yeah, I loved that room. The Meltdown stage was that was some of the best comedy at the time was happening there.
I never ended up performing there. I think the opportunity came up once or twice, and I was just like, no, I don't want to.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
This is too much pressure.
Sure, that's fair.
So yeah, that had wrapped up. My timeline is bad on this of like all the where we went to when,
right?
But it bounced around a lot. I know we went from AfterBuzz.
I thought it was like, I thought that it went from like, I thought it was Nerdist, AfterBuzz, Fox. That's what I thought the transition was.
Could have been, but then the bounce backs, like then there was AfterBuzz again, and then Stream.tv was in there, and one thing we tried to do independently for a hot minute, and then to you.
And I remember
to Dragon Wagon Radio.
I remember when, I was talking with Johnny, we were catching up about something, and he was talking about the show and how, it had this following, and it had it used to be on Fox and the Nerdist and all this stuff. And now like the reviews that you guys were getting were all like, I can't hear shit. The production's terrible. The audio is terrible. Like people started kind of being really upset with the production. And that's when I was like, yeah, I have a podcast network. Just come record. I could do it all. I have everything. It's right here. It's easy. It's free. Yeah. I didn't charge. I made $0. It's not like I was like, oh, come and the network and then pay me to do it. And versus, so I wasn't paying you guys. I wasn't paying the compadres either. It was just about like, you have a show you're trying to make on your own. You have a Patreon that you're trying to make money on. Like, I will give you the space and you become under the umbrella of the network. And eventually that leads to like merchandise. You have other stuff and we all figure out a way to make money on it, which is, I'm going to use this term and I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but it's unfortunately still the situation, but it is the situation. It's, that's the point of it. The point of it is, you want to do something. Here's the best possible way for you to do it on your own, without at least knowing that you're in control without getting screwed over by another company who's just going to go, well, now there's no show, or we don't want to pay you money to do it or whatever.
Yeah, because the agreement, and this is for anybody who wants to seek out or do podcasts with anyone who is setting up a network or allowing you a space to record, you have to schedule this and let them know, because Jake was doing it out of his living room.
Yeah.
And
the pop-up
so we had to, that was part of the agreement, right? It's like, you have to coordinate and say, hey, you can't just do last minute, like, hey, we're going to come in and record a show for an hour and a half. Like, the hell you are? Have friends over for dinner.
Sure, right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
every Wednesday at 2 or whatever the fuck the time was. Yeah. It was like that kind of very specific regimented thing.
Jake was accommodating it, but you and I hadn't met in any capacity, I think, until I went into your home, right?
Yep. The very first time that I met you was the first episode of Compadres on the Dragon Wagon Radio Network. It was the first time I met you. And the first time that I met Jay and Dale virtually, because Dale wasn't there. I think he might have been doing call-in, but then he did show up, and then he was present for a couple. Like, it was kind of like, because he was traveling a bunch.
I remember I knew you for a bit, and then I made a video of you two meeting for Patreon. I was like,
that's what it was.
Oh, this will be fun.
Right.
They're meeting.
That's what it was. Yeah. Because it was only call-ins at first. But yeah, that was the first time I had met you two. And I knew Johnny for a while through comedy. I think we met, and the first time that Johnny and I met was through Patrick Melton, who's a comic who has like one of the oldest running podcasts there is, called Nobody Likes Onions, which I was a part of back in Florida 20 years ago. Kind of a controversial program now. Patrick's one of those people who like,
because people do like onions.
Well, the whole point of the
shit.
It's like kind of very shock jockey, but the whole point of the show was just sort of like to pick a fight with people. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the premise of the show. Is like, it used to just be like a comedy show that was.
So like when we did AEW's better than NXT and vice versa.
No, it would be like you and I being like, there's another wrestling show. The what was the show that they were performing at the Comedy Store? Like, if we were like fucking, Eddie Firth. If we were like, fuck Eddie Firth, that guy sucks as a referee and as a comedian, and their podcast sucks. And then we got into an actual real life fight with those people. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. But I digress. That's, I think, how I met Johnny, just through comedy that way. And then I ruined the show, according to a lot of the reviews. Jakeover happened.
Yeah.
Wait, I forgot. Here you go. Hang on a second. This is for the people viewing. This is why you got to tune into the Patreon only podcast.
Oh shit, we're going to get a Clark Kent to Superman thing going right here. We got a disrobing, and he reveals the artwork of his face.
That was that.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the subliminal messaging that your face put out there, because everybody else smiled in their artwork
it was a Jakeover. That was what the bit was, because people didn't show up to record shows. And so I started to be on the show, and I was like, well, let's make a bit out of it. Let's make it seem like I'm forcing this, because that would be funny. Little did I know people took that very seriously. People really thought that I just took over the show.
They turned on you fast.
Oh boy. You can't turn on somebody who you weren't a fan of in the first place.
There were a couple people that the audience had
God, I've gotten so much fatter since I bought this shirt. I'm so uncomfortable in this tiny little shirt. God, I've gotten big over the years.
I'm wearing my King of Backyard style shirt, also fatter, but it is hidden better.
I mean, not flattering. I'm gonna put my hoodie back on.
No,
I'm sorry, guys. I wanted to put
cups there.
I wanted to put the old Lloyd Dust shirt on just for reminiscing sake, but I'm very
Gold Dust going through those hard times in that.
I am
one piece leotard.
Oh, I'm like Fat Dust. Remember we called them Fat Dust? That was not nice of us.
I love Carlin Baith. I love the time we had with her on Fox Sports, and I loved her as host, loved the energy, loved the laugh. But man, there were audience members that also had left reviews and just saying like, God, the laugh. Oh, what is going on? They just were upset with her, but she was also a new person with the group at the time. And I never saw that for me, in a large wave. I think there was certainly like, who the fuck is this guy?
Right.
But
well, also wrestling fans.
I usually got the upset nature from guests and wrestlers.
It was the people on the show that didn't like you.
Members.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I got it.
I love you.
Was who the fuck is this guy? I don't like him. I don't like his
face. His face just bothers me. But he's so nice and he's a fan. I don't care. I don't like his face. But he does improv. He's very funny. Doesn't matter. Fucking face. Yeah, I never got the pleasure of meeting or working with Carolyn. I still can't say her name right.
That's why Carlin.
Oh, well, in fairness, had I known her and she'd corrected me 12 times, I would have been embarrassed in front of her. It's if I'm not gonna get embarrassed without her being here, so I'll just keep getting it wrong like an asshole. But yeah, I mean, from there, the rest is history. Obviously, we went through some changes. We rebranded the program to reflect, I think, a new era of the show that you and I had kind of ended up with. It really did sort of land in our laps in that sense where, Johnny got hired, went off and did some incredible work for the machine. Dale moved and it became tougher. It became kind of less of a priority and completely understandable. Other stuff going on in his life. And it just sort of,
like life changed and just the proximity was an issue. I mean, this is pre-pandemic where it's like, oh, this is how it has to work. Right. But we're also dealing with time zones. Like it just became complicated and amicable.
Right. Totally. And so PWP was born. And with that,
because also the format, because in large part, Compadres was
a recap show
based on guests.
Oh,
within the industry, comics, friends.
Right.
And that became something that internally we talked about. And it's like, this is really hard to maintain. Yeah. And I think as much as we'd like to talk to wrestlers on a regular basis,
it's probably better that we don't.
It became difficult because we weren't liking the people more and more we'd find out about them, or we want to sooner have someone in studio to have a conversation that feels different than someone on a Zoom call, someone
of course,
that we don't see their face. We're just doing audio and the timing's poor and we can't get a real conversation going.
Right. Yeah, we don't want to do late night. So, we never, you and I are never a fan of like the late night talk show conversation.
Yeah, the 7 minutes, you get like 3 questions and it's all weird and staggered.
Yeah.
So we decided like, all right, we got to start changing this then. Right. And then the recaps of television of what we were watching was fun for a while, but then we started getting into territories of the pandemic when we go,
I don't want to watch
this stuff is terrible. Why are we reviewing this?
Right, yeah.
Let's talk about anything else.
Yeah. And at that time, the Patreon was the fun thing that we were doing. And we were like, why don't we just make the Patreon what the show is, which is just different conversations, different topics, not a recap. Not that we still don't talk about some stuff here and then now, but, we also wanted to bring the listeners into the show even more. That was when we introduced the live version of the program for the patrons, which, by the way, we also created the PWP World Championship, currently held, acknowledge him, by Gilbert Short, a.k.a. Goliathon. We forgot to mention him up top, but I don't want to dare we omit acknowledging Gilbert Short, current PWP World Champion, but stuff like that. Introducing the championship, introducing the interactivity, having the live streams, people can join us, just kind of making it more of a community-based show versus a guest-based show, which is kind of, was always the goal. It's a shame we never succeeded, but listen, 10 years is enough. That's what I say. Let me ask you this, Scott Narver. How do you think doing a wrestling podcast, whether it be commentary, whether it be
failure, we've only hit failure.
How do you feel that it has affected your enjoyment of pro wrestling? Are you still the same type of wrestling fan that you were before you started talking about it on the internet?
Incessantly?
Yeah.
I guess I'm not really, because there's more dissection involved rather than watching it with a buddy and being adamant about like, that guy sucks.
Right.
Or this guy's the best. What are you talking about? You have no clue. The overall journey of like how to talk about it initially in Compadres, it was be funny.
Right.
Like you're going to only earn your spot in chatting with this and with other people about being funny and having a take on it and doing that. And I felt like I was comfortable doing that. Then when we get into the Fox Sports side of things, it was the sports show, right? Like you had to have a point of view and you had to come up with one fast about something. And usually you had to believe it in some degree or other, but that was a whole new fun challenge because it became about not a debate show, but it became the discussion. It's all right. It's this topic. Roman Reigns still champ. Is it working?
Right.
Go. I love that because that like harnessed a bunch of stuff that that's the whole fucking Karate Kid of it all, right? Like I've been doing all these things. I've been doing improv. I've been doing other stuff all throughout these years and going, oh shit, I've just been painting a fence and waxing a car.
Right.
I didn't know that all this comes into play right now. And it felt comfortable. I didn't feel like I was on my heels. There have been so many other situations for something like that where I'd go, I'm not ready. I can't do this. And I felt comfortable and fine.
Right.
Other than being on camera and like wearing shitty clothes and going like, none of this fits me and it looks stupid.
Sure.
But I could do this. Like if it was a camera set like this and I had to just keep going and doing that, felt great. Interviewing, doing all that stuff was iffy and wasn't the best at, but I loved that. And that was also making me watch and take wrestling in a totally different way.
Right.
Because it was about what can you make a take of about this subject that is bigger than just in line for an autograph and going like Shawn Michaels is the best.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. Well, he has the best matches, you know.
Well, that also is
that part was cool.
Yeah. And that also is like what you and I ultimately decided after doing sort of the remnant of Compadres with just the two of us after the other parties had, had to leave. Yeah, I got it, Scotty. Sorry, we're having two conversations here, kids. But I can't pull it up or else they'll see the thing. So it's, trying to keep secrets.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Once again, listeners, you got to become a patron and watch these live because good stuff happens. But when we were doing the version of Compadres that we didn't feel comfortable doing anymore, a big part of it was finding a different approach. And it's like, well, what do we actually know? Because we're just two fucking schmucks, like every other two schmucks out there who do a wrestling show.
Yeah.
Like, what do we know? Well, we know performing. We're both professional performers in various ways and in our own respects. And so, like, having conversations that were more than just, I like these people. I don't like these people, even though sometimes that still happens. I think that was kind of important to us. And so, yeah, I kind of hear that where it's like, oh, it allowed you to kind of flex a specific muscle in a way that maybe ultimately is good for you as a performer in the long run too.
Yeah, it was a different challenge because I certainly hit a point in doing podcasts and things going, why did I forever study and learn scripts and not just the most talented wrestler on the face of the planet, but pages with the words on it. Why did I do this? And now I'm setting out to just constantly make shit up off the top of my head.
Right.
That is not my strong suit. My strong suit was I can take written material for me, memorize it, and present it in some way.
Yeah.
And now I found myself no, you do it. What the hell am I doing? And at times it felt like it worked. And there's certainly, as far as a wrestling fan, I would never have had the opportunity. I don't think, maybe with On Your Mark, but even On Your Mark, things of compadres bled into opportunities for On Your Mark.
Right, of course, yeah.
That were different and unique. Like
the shows were they became sisters.
Yeah. It was Carlin. Carlin had flat out said to me, use Fox Sports to your full advantage.
Right.
And I did. I used that badge of honor that we had for a year. I had a year-long badge, and I sadly was, I think I was realistic about it, not pessimistic about it, but
sure.
I thought this gig is only going to last for a year.
Right. Right.
Internally at Fox Sports, everything about it felt like they're not going to keep it. They don't want it. I thought they were already fairly ignorant, not knowing that there was a Colt Cabana out in the world, that there was a JR, that there were these other names in wrestling that were big names that had a podcast that would happily do this there and bring them more clout, but would also charge them a lot of money.
Right. Right.
So, but they didn't want wrestling anyway. Like wrestling was already a shitty thing, even though there was a SmackDown deal being worked on. None of that was in place yet.
Right.
And we were dealing with Fox Sports media department. They didn't fucking like us. They had the Fighter and the Kid podcast, which we're having issues back and forth about.
Right.
Internally, there were people that were mad at Fighter and the Kid. I tried to get along with them.
Right.
We didn't have any issues, but they were having the fucking number one show there was.
Right.
There. They felt like big stars, and they would go over in their time in their studio and shit like that. And people would be upset, and I'd be like, all right, unless we have a guest or someone coming in time wise, didn't bother me, but I didn't have much of a life going on. So it's fine by me. So I tried to just wanted to be like, let's all get along. Cause if they like us, who knows? Maybe they'll be like, hey, what do you guys come on the show next week?
Right.
Then that helps us. Why do we got to be pissy at them and try and do dumb shit to their studio? Let's be nice. But Carlin has said, like, make Fox Sports, like, take advantage of it. And so that's what it was, like, getting to know Josh Matthews, who worked at Impact at the time.
Right. And
utilizing everything there, like getting to go backstage at a wrestling show. I never thought I would be able to do.
Right.
Ever. And I got to do that because of it. And I got to do interviews for compadres. And then I also got to do stuff for On Your Mark and do the whole thing. It was mind blowing. Like all that changed forever. Cause even the little backstage experience I've ever had, that changes everything as a wrestling fan.
Right.
Because you've now truly seen behind the curtain.
Yeah. You've seen
so no matter what you see
how the sausage is made,
always going to stick with you.
Right. Do you think that it's made it easier or harder for you to watch the product when it's very good or very bad?
Yeah. I think that's overall just because of you watch long enough and you see the highs and you see the lows.
Right.
So any new fan might be like, no, this is all right. This is okay. Yeah. It's not good enough for me now.
Right.
I'm 43. I've watched a lot of good stuff. Let me know when it's good again. I'm going to go do something else.
Right.
My time is running shorter. I don't have all the time in the world to just go, I'll watch everything. What about for you?
Yeah, I feel like it's simultaneously, kept me in wrestling, but it's also made me a little bit of a cynic about wrestling. It's kind of like a little bit of both because I think changing to Palskis helped because I didn't feel obliged to watch 10 hours a week, which is what I was watching at that time because I felt like I needed to know everything that was on both main shows and NXT, and then potentially when AEW started, it just felt like there was just so much. But there were definitely times where I feel like I probably, I don't know that I would have even gotten pulled back in for the Bloodline stuff had we not been doing the show. I think when I fell out in 2020 into 2021, I don't think I would have I think had we not been doing the show, I probably would have been done for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe at that point, if like when Punk came back, I maybe would have been like, well, I got to watch this. But yeah, I think it's a bit of both worlds. But I will say it's my favorite thing about it is that we've created this community, and like the Discord is like I love having the Discord. It's so entertaining. It's such a great little fun community of other wrestling, and I'm not even going to say like-minded, because it's people who have all different opinions, people who like different talent and like different styles, and I like having that is really nice, because I haven't really had like sit down and watch the show Friends for a long time. For a short while there, I had my buddy Paul, a misunderstood host I would like to watch stuff with, but that he kind of fell out of it, and he's obviously since moved. You and I, watch a lot of wrestling together for the Patreon, but we never watch we don't watch live stuff together. I think we watched one pay-per-view together in all time and space, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember what it was.
Two, because you had the gambling sheets.
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, you recall. But so the Discord really like kind of helps. It makes
fill that void.
It makes also just makes bad wrestling good, or it makes like stuff that's hard to swallow a little bit easier to do so, because it's like, well, if this sucks, we can all shit on it together.
Yeah,
and that's entertaining. That's wrestling.
Yeah, that is a wild part about all this too. Of everybody that I met that was a host, everybody that I met was a guest, everybody I met who's a wrestler, like all those things. Listeners, like I remember being in Brooklyn for one of the SummerSlams, and I was out waiting for my buddy because I had to show up earlier for like meeting up with somebody else. And then I think it was 3 or 4 people that went like, "Are you?" And they knew whatever the fucking show was on at that point.
Sure.
But
yeah, whatever version.
I was I'm some sort of version of a wrestling pundit, right?
Of course.
And I was recognized, and everybody was nice, and we went like, "Yeah, your fucking show sucks." I was in New York, for God's sake.
Right,
so that easily could have happened.
Yeah.
But it felt nice, and it felt like, oh, no one's going like, "Hey, let's be friends." But I met Nuggets that way. Like then had met Nuggets in person because she lived in New York, I know at the time, and came out to a thing or saw, and we chatted, and it was friendly. And I go like, I made a friend. Like there's a relationship here.
Right.
Because of this, because of my fandom, and going like, I'll talk about it. And her going like, I want to listen to people talk about it. And that was wild to me. That was wild to just form relationships with people in the chat right now. Like Andrea Beeler's in there and chatting about stuff. And like,
by the way, she says
there's a relationship there.
She says, I really wish that we would have had the Discord or something back all those years ago. I agree. I think that would have been a nice common aggregate place. And I'm sure like the chats at the live streams at AfterBuzz and those stuff were fun, but I think like, something like what there is now back then would have been great, because there was I think there were a lot more eyes on it, and there were a lot more ears listening because of the Fox of it all and because of the Nerdist of it all. Andrea also says that she feels like she's known you for 10 years through all of this. Andrea Beeler.
Yeah. And it's weird. I know her through pictures or things and comments and, her thoughts on wrestlers and stuff. And I haven't met everybody, but I've certainly met listeners throughout time at Manias or something. And it's just it's a unique, weird thing to go, oh yeah. I'm sure it's not unlike a movie actor, right? Or something that's like you perform, but you don't have any of the reaction. There is no crowd there. You just put it out there and you go, I guess somebody's watching it. I don't know. And you see a comment or you see something, and then the Discord's there. And so there's more real time stuff, but Mickey Bell, a listener, is like a photo to me and some smiles and walking a dog, but always
walking that dog. It's getting a lot. He's walking all over Gibraltar.
It's not like this, where at least if I knew you only this way, I'd be like, yeah, I know Jake's torso. Sure. I know his rhythms and the way he talks, but it's a basis of a relationship. It's just wild to me that all exists. And that to me, I am wildly appreciative for all the relationships, good and bad, whether they're wrestlers or whatever.
Right.
Just meeting and seeing people and listeners is great.
Yeah, I mean, that I feel like that is that's a thing that we talk about all the time. Anytime we talk about the program, and that like the community is our favorite part of it. And the fact that we have the live stream, I think we can get cynical and go like, oh God, I wish we had more patrons and more people in the live stream and more of this and that. But it's like any feedback is great because it's not just Scott and I talking into a void. Instead, we know how you, the listeners, feel about things. We know what you're fans of. And I think that's super fun and unique, especially considering they're like, these are all just strangers, people that, live all over the world, that have all their own little lives. They do all sorts of their own things.
And any longtime listener, we got you with a special guest and we kept you with no more special guests.
Suckers.
They got Braun Strowman on? Cool.
Well, Scott, I do have, I have this thing that you had sent me, and I'm not quite sure exactly how this is going to work. But I'm going to try to do something fun here. Do you want to?
Okay.
So I don't know whether you're going to immediately be able to see this.
Will the live chat be able to?
Yes. The hope is that the live chat here will be able to enjoy this. By the way, this just came in moments ago, so that's why this wasn't set up ahead of time.
All this was so last minute.
Let's see if this works.
No matter where in the world you're watching or listening to this from, hey everybody, Scotty reached out and said it's the 10-year anniversary of the launch, the explosion, the fart of Compadres. And I said, okay, why not? Let's send in a message. It's just too much to summarize in a couple of minutes. Just all the memories, all the experiences. Dale and I were already friends, and he had a chance to create a podcast and said, hey, would you want to do it? I said, why not? And then, obviously, Chuck was a big part of it early on, and I'm very grateful to work with him. And obviously, I'm happy to see what he's doing, too, in life and in his career, which is fantastic. And then Scotty jumped on board. We needed some height. Dale's already tall. We needed someone even taller to jump on board, and so Scotty fit the bill. Skeeter Skyflyer. I mean, I'm not saying they're the same person. They're not the same person. I'm just saying they remind me of each other in the best ways possible. Just very, very pure of soul and heart. And I already had known Jake for a long time. We did some really cool projects together. And so just to think about 10 years, it's a long time. And I guess the best way to summarize it is, thanks to everyone for who jumped on board as listeners. What a wild ride. We had I would like to say a magical year at Fox Sports. It wasn't magical, but it was a year at Fox Sports. I mean, in the corporate environment, things always change, and sometimes it's out of your control. You got to roll with the punches. But to say that, Compadres, Palskis, whatever was a part of Fox Sports is pretty crazy. And yeah, I think for me personally, I'm grateful that everyone who listened has kind of just kept on track with us throughout the years and cheered me on and supported me through my run as a broadcaster that still continues to this day. And I think what Compadres taught me the most is just to be comfortable interviewing people, talking to people, having conversations. Because, now even when I'm interviewing fighters in the cage post-fights, it's just that much easier because of having a mic in front of me with Compadres. And I remember along the way as we kept doing Compadres and I kept progressing with wrestling as a play-by-play broadcaster, whatever, I was like, you know what? I think I could really do this at like a high level. And Compadres kind of gave me that confidence. It gave me those reps to keep talking as often as possible. And eventually it led to, the dream gig, which I'm still always be grateful for. And so, 10 years, it's a long time. And I'm glad Scott and Jake are continuing the madness. And I really thank everyone for continuing to listen to them and everyone who's followed me along. And as far as I'm concerned, I hope it continues for another 42 to 43 years. I think by 2067, I think Jake and Scott will be ready to toss in the towel. But until then, I think it's going to go very strongly. I'm not sure if my math worked out. Is that 42 years? I think it is. 20, 40. Doesn't matter. Anyways, thanks everyone. And Glad you're enjoying the show. Keep on listening. And hopefully I'll have some more good stuff for you to watch and listen to down the road. Oh, and keep chasing your dreams. That's the whole point of this. Keep chasing your dreams, because you never know what's going to happen.
Johnny LaQuasto sending in a little special something. That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Johnny.
Look at that run-in. Who doesn't love a run-in?
What I loved about it was how smoothly we integrated it. Really. It was just...
Yeah, it was sent in immediately, yes. And you just a click of a button.
I mean,
no
in fairness,
problem.
As we were recording, Scott messaged me in the Zoom and was like, just forwarded you something from Johnny. That's fantastic. Yeah, man. I like that.
That was lovely. Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you so much. I like that Johnny, talks about how doing compadres all those years was just training. It was just another piece of experience that ultimately kept building and allowed him to be a little bit more confident in what he's doing. And, Johnny's crushing it. He always crushes it and everything he does. Future voice of all combat
10
sports.
10 years. And then he grew a Van Dyke. I didn't know it would take that long. I thought he was shaving this whole time.
No, it just
turns out he wasn't.
Yeah, it took him that long. And he doesn't shave anything around it. It just grows in like that naturally.
Yeah.
But I was going to pay him a compliment, and you interrupted me to make fun of his facial hair. The future voice of all contact sports. That's what I'm calling Johnny LaQuasto.
Oh, shit.
Future voice of all
UFL?
contact. Yes. Wait. UFL? What is UFL?
That's the merger of XFL and whatever the other thing is.
Is it a combat?
That has a U in it.
Is it a combat sport?
It's football.
That's not a combat sport.
Yeah, it is. They're trying to get the ball and did you ever see Last Boy Scout?
No.
That's what football is.
No, I didn't see The Last Boy Scout. I quit Boy Scouts 2 months before I made Eagle.
Well, they're now Scouts of America anyway. So
they didn't let me see the movie. Well, everybody, thank you guys so much for joining us. I think we do have a hotline call, or maybe 2. I'm not quite sure how many, because once again, 10 years in, and we're doing very good on our preparing for these sorts of things. We're very good at the pre-production.
Well, you're on top of it, and I will say this, because I saw a couple comments saying, like, I didn't get time to call. I didn't know. Calls on this are welcome at any time. There's no limit of like, oh, well, you didn't call for this episode. Sorry, too bad, too late. You can buy a gift for a wedding for up to a year. So
this whole summer is the summer of Compadres 10.
Slam.
You know how like Marvel Studios put like the IO, they made it a 10. It was just like a few movies they made that year. It was like the 10-year anniversary. That's what this is.
Sure.
Andrea Beeler, the show means the world to me. It helped me through so many hard times in my life. Oh, Andrea.
And she lives where Kane is the mayor.
That's what she's talking about.
Oh,
those were the hard times in her life. Love you guys and everyone who has been a part of the show. We love you too, Andrea. Thanks once again if you joined us live. Thanks to Gilbert Short, PWP World Champion. Oh, and new husband, by the way. Gilbert got married like last week.
What?
Yeah, Gilbert got married last week.
Wait, were you invited?
No. Motherfucker.
The fuck is this shit?
It's fucking bullshit. I hope he gets beat for that championship. All right, Gilbert.
You didn't get to catch the bouquet.
No, I don't know. I didn't catch shit. Not even COVID.
Well, congratulations to Champ and now married man. My goodness, how many things does he need this May?
Seriously, like, so selfish.
It's Gilbert. This is our anniversary. Okay,
it's fucking stealing thunder and shit.
He's trying to throw his anniversary into our anniversary.
Yeah,
clearly a forgetful person and just trying to lump them all together so he doesn't forget.
Stealing our WCW thunder. If you want to challenge Gilbert for that PWP title, well, then you got to become a championship level patron over at patreon.com/PW Palskis. We talk about it every week. We talk about it too much every week. I'm aware of that. I've heard you. I apologize. We just really need patrons.
Do you get complaints? Really?
People say, yeah.
Is it cousin Paul? Shut up.
No,
Paul.
I think it's just because.
Oh, never mind. Keep talking, Paul.
We have dedicated listeners who are already patrons, And that's the majority of the people who listen to the podcast.
Listen, do you want to hear about MeUndies or that other shit? Because I'll start roping those ads in.
I mean,
I'll do it. They're going to hear about that stuff.
He'll do it, guys. Don't.
I'll do
He'll
it.
fucking do it. And they're not even going to pay him. He's just going to fucking do it.
You're gonna hear about some toys that are made in China that are gonna give you some sort of venereal disease. I'm gonna get those sponsors
from AdamandEve.com.
I'm gonna get them.
AdamandEve.com was actually one of the sponsors for To Nobody Like Onions, the podcast I was telling you about 15 years ago. Anyways, thank you guys. We appreciate you. We're gonna go take a hotline call. Scott, say goodbye to the live stream.
Bye, live stream. Thank you so much for joining in on this very, very special episode.
747-666-5606. That is the number to the Pro Wrestling Palskis hotline. Scott, Narva, you want to see what the hotline has in store for us?
Today? Yeah, okay, sure.
Hey, y'all. Mask Llama with the Legendary Fighting Federation here, and congrats on 3 years and congrats on 10 years to the overall timeline. Looking back, I gotta say, like, I loved the episodes. The discussion of the Hall of Fame is great, and I absolutely adore the encyclopedia episodes, or just the goofy movie times. I know it's not a movie podcast. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think overall, like, one of my favorite moments from the whole Wrestling Compadres era was the Paul Heyman interview at WrestleMania. That was such a glorious sketch. It was so cool for Paul to go with it. So, but yeah, for the Palskis, great 3 years. Hoping for, at least another 6. I don't want to get greedy. Anyway, have a good time, y'all. Take care. Bye.
Mass Llama, not as highly expectant as Johnny was for how much longer we do the show.
Somewhere between 6 and 40-ish years
40,
is what we got.
Yeah. Big fan of the WWE Encyclopedia episodes, the Hair Hall of Fames. I love the Hair Hall of Fames. We definitely are long overdue for one of those. I like those because I like writing comedy. I'm better when I write stuff, as listeners can attest. You're the improviser, I'm the writer. And so I like those because
my writing takes way too long. You've heard me bitch about that before.
That's true. And that's why when we do those episodes, you can tell I've written mine and you're making yours up as they go for the most part.
Yeah, because I might write like a quick thing and I go, no, right. I can't.
I love the Hair Hall of Fame because I love writing little funny comedy bits. So we might have to do one of those because I just enjoy them. Loves the silly shit, loves the when we do shit with movies. Yeah, I think we're also long overdue for another wrestling casting call.
Oh yeah.
We have another universe or two to dive into there. But then talked about the Heyman interview. That Heyman bit is really fantastic, and it's a testament to how good he is and how much he understands who he is as a character. Like we talked earlier about, you're like, oh, there's some wrestlers I met, and I was like, oh yeah, I don't like these people. But like, he gave you guys time when he did not have to at all.
Yeah, that was, I'd say, being a little bit more candid about it, I think that was this WrestleMania Row. So that's the morning of WrestleMania, or it's the day before. And they're asking interviewers to get there like 5-something in the morning. It's brutal. Talent gets there maybe like 7, but they want you to check in, set up, and you're just there. And we've throughout the years have gone from like a primo spot where the good tables are, and then that year we were far away and we were next to the bathroom.
Right.
So we'd see a lot of talent. Usually they're walking to the bathroom
as they went to take a dump.
And the Wranglers weren't bringing them to us, and we were still getting some fun people, but they were not bringing top names to us anymore. And so we saw Heyman, and then Johnny and I were just kind of talking, and we weren't doing a whole lot because we just weren't getting people. Everybody else was getting them. So then we were just talking about shit, and I think that's the only time I've had a successful elevator pitch. Was
Really?
just
In your entire professional career?
that an elevator pitch being you got to say what you want real fast and make it sound real good.
Right.
And I thought about it and I talked about it to Johnny. He's like, yeah, I guess let's try it. And throwing it out to Heyman of like, hey, I know you're busy doing everything for everybody else, but we just thought it'd be funny if, you know, you think you're talking to some big shots and we're not it. And then he didn't agree. He didn't say anything. He just, it's like to him, it's like, yeah, I got this. I got it. This
Understood.
will be funny.
Done. Yep.
And just sat right down. And it was we were thankfully, I'd learned this from previous mistakes. Like recording was ready to go.
Right.
I think we might have even had it already live.
Right.
And then we just handed them a microphone and you heard what we did. And the only other interaction after that was, can we get a photo with you so we can prove that this was a real bit?
Right. That this isn't a Heyman impersonator.
Yeah. And so he took that. And I think that was also roughly around the last year we could have gotten him to do that because it's been talked about for a number of years now. He's the cock of the walk backstage. Like he walks around and he's hot shit.
Well,
he doesn't have to do bits like this at all now if he doesn't feel like it.
They also don't really offer the podcast row the way they used to either. Like that. I mean, that was sort of the tail end of that as well.
Is that right?
Yeah, because it's all, like everything is very, very controlled.
Yeah. And I guess it would be more media outlets than this podcast, but I don't know. The people, I know some of those people they let in those press corps rooms and I go, really?
Yeah. No.
So
I mean, I know because
I do miss stuff
I was
like
in
that
one
too.
and I went, really? Me? So
that stuff is certainly fun. It is fun to chat with wrestlers from time to time, but I think if ever we were to do it again, I'd want Jake and I in the same space and
we've
to
talked
just
about
really
this.
be able to sit with somebody and chat with them.
Yeah, we've talked about this before about like if we are going to reach out to get guests, one, we all need to be in studio, and two, we need to have an intent. It needs to not be, all right, we'll talk us through your career that you've talked to 5 other podcasts about. But
what's your dream match?
Right. Like literally you're going to come on the show and today you're going to cast wrestlers and fucking MCU characters. Like we're going to do something fun that they're not used to having to do over and over again. We've always talked about that's kind of our brand. Like that's what we don't want to just do the same thing that everybody's doing. It's the shit that fucking, there's a reason why Hot Ones is the best fucking interview show on fucking YouTube, because it's different. It's not the same conversation that these people have during their press tours.
Yeah, they want to figure out what's information that this person has that I really want to know.
Yes. Yep.
So ours is performance based, nerdy, and someday maybe
we'll see. Big maybe, but well, that'll do it. Thanks guys. I know this was a real vainglorious episode. Not a lot of wrestle talk, but we figured we should at least acknowledge the path we took. So awesome hearing from Johnny. Thank you so much for sending that in. We knew that was last minute. By the way, we like we talked about this whole thing, which is like, oh shit, we should probably talk about the fact that there's this milestone, and Johnny sent that in like an hour from when. Not even from when you messaged him earlier today. So, thank you guys so much. If you want to find us on the socials, you can do so at PW Palskis. I'm at Jake Lloyd Bacon. He's at Scott Narver. Make sure you're peeping in with the hosts of yesteryear. Send a message to Johnny. Send a message to Dale. To Carlin. Did I say it right that time?
Yeah.
Great. Let the folks know that you're still thinking of them, that you're still following their career, and that it all came from compadres or whatever version of the program it was. Follow all the people that have to do with all things Palskis, compadres. Also support the program. We've come a really long way, but it hasn't always been a vertical climb. It ebbs and flows. There's peaks and valleys. The best way that we can assure you there will be more anniversary episodes is by supporting the show. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. You can leave rating and reviews on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. You can tell your friends about the program. You can snag some merchandise, really good, high-quality merchandise available over at the shop. You can become a patron. Number one way to support the show is become a patron. You get access to hundreds of hours of a back catalog. There's watch-along series. There's the original encyclopedia. There's the Hair Hall of Fame that we mentioned. There's so much stuff available there for dollars, for just like, I mean, you're getting like 100 hours per dollar you spend. Like, I mean, there's so much shit there. It's such a bargain at this point that, to be
It's way
perfectly honest with
better
you,
bargain than what you'll get buying AEW Fight Forever or any of the DLC.
sure.
You'll get way more wrestling content out of our Patreon than you will that video game.
Sure. So please consider becoming a patron over at patreon.com/PW Palskis. You can find links to all of this stuff, as well as the Discord, which is completely free, which just come and be part of the community. We talked about community a lot. This is just what it's all about. You can find all of that at pwpalskis.com. That's pwpalskis.com. pwpalskis.com, one-stop shop. You can find literally everything there, including the link to the Patreon, the link to the shop, the link to the Discord, the link to the socials. And last but certainly not least, Scott and Arvo, we need to thank our current Patreon Palskis.
Yes, thank you to everyone who supported the show over the years once we had come up with a Patreon. Generous. Everyone's been generous, and even if you're not listening to the show now, I hope your ears are itching, just burning, just a deep burn that you need an RFK Jr. worm to get in there and eat it out. So we are the only show to hand out Retribution names as well as Maximum Male Model names. Why? Because the Stream.tv did it first. So thank you to AJ0314, aka Binary, aka Matrice69, Alex Pierce, aka Figs, aka Zitoys, Andrea Beeler, aka Pollen Hate, aka Achu Detest, Curtis Mason, aka Hurtis, aka Auche, Gilbert Short, aka Goliathon, aka Batal Underruz, Mass Llama, aka Spitz, aka Jakara Lover. Oh, wait, here I am, reason why, because I'm like, well, he's married, he's fine. Gilbert Short, aka Goliathon, aka Batal Underoos, aka PWP Champ.
There it is.
Aka the best husband in the world for 6 months.
What
Then
does
take
that
out
mean?
the garbage.
Wait. Oh, okay.
Honeymoon's over.
I thought you were going to say that, like, he turns into a complete total piece of shit, and then the marriage ends. Like, great husband, 6 months. After 6 months, no more husband. You gotta get
Great husband. Hey, where were you? I was at a wrestling show trying to get a watch along ready. Like, no. You stay home tonight.
You don't have to be in them to be watch-alongs. God damn it, Gil. We keep talking about this.
Mass Llama, aka Spitz, aka Jikara Lover, Michael Beltran, aka Limestone, aka La Natural, Miguel Diaz, aka Bipod, aka Too Much Husk, Mike Lucas, aka Hackensack, aka Luger Testicle, Suicide, aka KA, Tim Bemis, aka War Trek, aka Tussle Quest, Tim Redbeard, aka Blood Fuzz, aka Blue de Fusée, Tom Hader, aka Cupid, aka Cherub, and Tony Griggs, aka Big Griggs, aka Grand Grisois. And I do want to say,
Please.
in addition to all that, thank you to everyone, past and present, who's ever picked up a microphone, being involved with compadres or Palskis, turned some knobs, listen to audio, having to cut shit together. Anybody at Fox Sports that dealt with the bullshit, that we brought or they brought, any of that, like anyone who's ever listened to the show, ever clicked on for 3 seconds and went, I don't know who these fucking guys are, or that kept listening to it and goes, I don't know who these fucking guys are. I love them. Thank you to everyone ever involved in this show, past, present, and future. And most importantly, because he's the only one left who will deal with my bullshit, Jake Lloyd Bacon. We're friends. You are my friend from this. We are
true.
Palskis. We have a connection to dumb wrestling, to dumb comedy, to dumb movies. And I feel incredibly fortunate that you want to do this with me, or that you are just not able to pull the trigger to stop doing it with me. So,
I mean,
I
Scott,
am
come
greatly
on.
appreciative of the time we spent together.
I know that you know me very well, and that is where your mind goes. Scott, listen, we talk all about this. You're making me emotional here. We talk all about the history of the program. We talk all about all the stuff. Scott, you're the only reason that the trigger hasn't been pulled. No offense to the listeners. I love the fact that we have the community we have. That's another huge reason, obviously. But, I feel like if, I'm bad at being friends. And I feel like what's nice about doing Palskis is that I can't not be friends with you because I'm an asshole. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, if we stop doing Palskis, I worry that I will be returned to my general position of being a shitty friend where I'm not good at reaching out and maintaining connections. And I love this because it's like, yeah,
forced.
I know I'm going to hang out with Scott for a little while. And we do a pre-show together where we talk a lot of shit. And at this point, it's a lie because a lot of times there's a pre-show that we don't record for anybody because that's where like our friendship lives. And I love that.
That's where our other friendships would die if that stuff got out.
And yeah, man, I love you. I really appreciate that you do the show as well. I appreciate that you're still here. And I also appreciate that when we talked about changing things and switching stuff up, because a lot of it was predicated on me being like, I don't want to do. I know that you were there with me as well, but I was definitely the driving factor in the name change, and I was pushing that for a while. And at first you were just like, well, I don't think it matters. And then I think you like kind of came to my side and went like, yeah, whatever. Like, we'll do this because I feel like Jake needs it to continue. And so, I appreciate you sticking with me as well. And, putting up with my schedule and, making it something
your time zone
can do. And my time zone, the stupid time zone. Ugh. EST. What are you doing? You know how late everything is here all the time? Jesus Christ.
Blame Bianca Belair.
A pay-per-view comes on. It's like the sleepy time already.
You live in the Bianca Belair zone. I don't know. I thought it was supposed to be the great est, the best est.
Listen, I like being in bed nice and early. Well, Scott, you said nice things to me, and I don't know how to reciprocate. So I'm just gonna say I appreciate you. Cash, really? All right, wait. Let me see. Let me see if there's anything in my Patreon.
Dirty cash.
Let me see if there's anything in my PayPal. There we go. Thank you. I was gonna do a bit about how you need to send me money. If there was something in my PayPal, I'd send you cash. But it turns out there's nothing in my PayPal right now. Scott.
Well, then we're good.
So
win.
Oh, all right, kids.
Hey, everybody, go cheer up. Go watch the Iron Claw. That'll level things out, and you'll be fine.
Hey guys, this is fun. We love you guys. We love doing a program for you guys. We hope that we can continue to grow. And I know that's been 10 years, but we still are just figuring shit out. And our desires and our interests and what we want out of the show changes still drastically from year to year. So we appreciate you sticking with us. We hope you had fun today, just chatting about the program. Once again, big thanks to Johnny. We hope everybody had a good time. As always, it was an absolute blast hanging out with you, the Pro Wrestling Palskis.
Hi there. My name is Steven Sable. I'm a theater producer, director, and actor of the stage who truly loves the works of William Shakespeare. We all know the writer and his legendary stories and sonnets and poems. A writer who took risks, exposed truths, and placed a mirror to the world and culture of his era. But who was Shakespeare the man? Wasn't that long ago that I discovered the answer to that question isn't as clear as I had always been told. Was he the grain dealer with a name that kind of sounds like Shakespeare, who never bothered to teach his own children to read? Or was the Shakespeare name itself a pseudonym used to protect the identity of a secret nobleman riding for the crown? Join me as I explore literary history's greatest mystery on my podcast, Don't Quill the Messenger. It's a part of Dragon Wagon Radio. You can find it now at don'tquillthepodcast.com and all available podcast platforms.
Dragon Wagon.